Audrey's love for Duncan was boundless, unyielding even in the face of insurmountable odds. Yet she had underestimated his determination. The night air was thick with tension in the dimly lit hotel room. "It's been years, Miss Lyons. Your enthusiasm is quite eye-opening," Duncan remarked, his eyes brimming with mockery. Audrey's face stiffened, then she looked up at him, her expression filled with anguish. "Duncan, I know you're still angry that I left when you were struggling a year ago, but..." "Enough." Duncan cut her off sharply. "I don't want to hear a single word of your explanations, Audrey." He pulled away without hesitation, his cold gaze and chiseled features making him look even more striking in his tailored suit. "Duncan." Before Audrey could finish, Duncan threw a credit card at her face with a sharp slap. "That's your payment for tonight. Know your place. To me, you're nothing but a cheap escort, Audrey." Audrey looked at the tall, handsome man before her, overwhelmed by a wave of sorrow. She and Duncan had been high school sweethearts, founding quartet enterprises right after college. The path of entrepreneurship was arduous and bitter, but they had been happy because they had each other. Those were the happiest times of their lives. Until a year ago, when the company faced financial troubles and she discovered something was wrong with her health. She kept it from him, going for checkups alone, but even the most prestigious hospital in New York couldn't diagnose her condition. She chose to seek treatment in Switzerland. The very next day after she left, headlines were ablaze with news of Audrey Lyons absconding with $6 million and a lover, abandoning Duncan Millington in his hour of need. She wanted to explain, but her deteriorating health wouldn't allow it. Gastritis, hair loss, declining vision, multiple symptoms hit her in waves. Left with no choice, she tried to explain over the phone, but what did he tell her? He was getting engaged to Heather Leverton, the daughter of the prominent Leverton family. Not even 2 days after she had left, Duncan was getting engaged to Heather. Even now, as she tried to explain, he wouldn't give her a chance. Duncan despised how Audrey looked, as if the whole world owed her something, when in fact, she was the one who had betrayed him. He gripped Audrey's chin forcefully, his gaze piercing through her like a sharp blade. "Audrey, remember, this is your life now." Audrey laughed bitterly, her ethereally beautiful face twisted into a seductive smirk. "As long as Mr. Millington doesn't mind, I don't care." "Are you really that desperate?" A year ago, she had run off with another man, and now she was willing to stay by his side in such a degrading position. Duncan couldn't believe she had become such a shameless woman. His anger grew exponentially. His grip on her chin tightened even more. Audrey understood Duncan's feelings all too well, but she also knew her time was running out. Staying here allowed her to spend her final days with the man she loved. As for the truth about what happened a year ago, whether Duncan knew or not no longer mattered. His ultimate destiny was with Heather. Love or hate, as long as he stayed with her through her brief remaining time, it was enough. With this thought, she wrapped her arms around his neck, her eyes alluring. "Duncan, I'm willing to be your mistress. No, your escort. As long as I can stay by your side, I don't care what I am." Duncan sneered. He despised this shameless woman who constantly tried to seduce him. Fine then. If she was willing to be his kept woman, he would grant her wish. "Gentle, Duncan," Audrey whispered. "Gentle? How can that satisfy you?" Duncan growled, one hand pinning Audrey against the vanity, the other gripping her hair. "Look at yourself. Calling you an escort is too generous." Audrey gazed at her reflection in the mirror, her face a picture of allure tinged with despair. She managed a bitter smile. Once, Duncan would fret over the slightest frown on her face or the tiniest scratch on her skin. Now, every word he spoke felt like a dagger in her heart. But she had to accept it. No matter how much it hurt, she had to stay. She didn't want to leave with regrets. She didn't want to spend her final days without a trace of him in her life. After he finished, Duncan threw Audrey to the floor in disgust and left without a backward glance. It felt like an eternity before the pain in Audrey's body began to subside. She struggled to her feet, her blurry vision catching sight of a large clump of hair on the floor. Her frail body swayed unsteadily. Her eyesight was failing rapidly. Soon, all her organs would shut down. It wouldn't be long now. Maybe 2 months, maybe 1. Perhaps 10 days, or death might come even sooner than tomorrow. She ran her pale hands through her thinning hair. Soon, it would all fall out. Perhaps one day, seeing her own unsightly appearance, she'd lose the courage to face him altogether. Tearfully, she cleaned up the fallen hair and called her doctor, Dr. Josh Bennett. Josh, I need to know how much time I have left. After a long silence, he replied, 2 to 3 months at most. Audrey, come back. There's no place for you by his side anymore. It wasn't the first time Josh had said this. She didn't believe it, she didn't want to believe it. She had loved Duncan for 10 years, and he had loved her too. But today, all she saw in his eyes was hatred, a world-destroying hatred. Audrey was human too, flesh and blood. She longed for a shred of tenderness or pity from the man she loved before she died. The next afternoon, a guest arrived at the penthouse. No, not a guest, the future mistress of this home, Heather. Heather wore a red Valentino dress that was both alluring and sexy. Few men could resist her coquettish charm. Heather was shocked speechless at the sight of Audrey. Just last night, she'd heard that Duncan had brought a woman back from the airport. She never imagined it would be Audrey. How could she be back? Hello, Miss Leverton, Audrey greeted with a gentle, polite smile, though her heart sank. Duncan had fallen for another woman. Their decade-long relationship was now in the past. But what could she say? She was the one who left a year ago. Now Heather was his fiancée. Even if Heather came to question or humiliate her, Audrey had no right to protest. Would you like something to drink, Miss Leverton? Perhaps some sparkling water or iced tea? Audrey, I can't believe you have the audacity to come back, Heather spat, her face pale with anger. She had gone to such lengths to fabricate evidence of Audrey eloping with another man, creating an opportunity for herself. She never imagined Duncan would still be unable to forget Audrey, even hiding her away now. No. She wouldn't give Audrey a chance to turn things around this time. After staring intently at Audrey for a moment, Heather regained her composure. Just get me a glass of hot water. Of course, Miss Leverton. Please wait a moment, Audrey replied, her tone impeccably respectful. Heather watched with smug satisfaction as Audrey, once proud, now humbly served her tea and water. Ex-girlfriend? So what? I'm the one Duncan's marrying now. Audrey will never be more than a dirty secret, Heather thought triumphantly. She reached for the glass, but in the next moment. Ah! Audrey Lyons, are you trying to scald me to death? Heather jumped up from her chair, the sudden movement causing hot water to spill onto her hand. Audrey was splashed too, her brow furrowing slightly. She knew Heather had done this on purpose. But Audrey didn't care about Heather's tricks. Her only concern was Duncan. So she didn't explain or argue. She simply turned to go upstairs. Audrey, I can't believe you're so vicious. Are you upset that Duncan and I are together? Don't forget, you were the one who ran off with another man a year ago, abandoning Duncan when his company was struggling, Heather cried, her hand turning red, tears welling up in her eyes. I didn't, Audrey stopped, closing her eyes. Her thick lashes cast shadows on her cheeks, fan-like and beautiful. You didn't. Then how did a perfectly good glass of water end up on me? You did this on purpose. You're taking revenge because Duncan and I are together. Heather's tears fell like broken strings of pearls. Believe what you want, Audrey shrugged helplessly. Enraged, Heather reached out to grab Audrey's Chanel blouse, preventing her from leaving. But in the next moment, her Jimmy Choo heels gave way and she fell to the ground. Audrey, since scalding me didn't work, are you trying to make me fall to my death now? She looked up, her face full of grievance as she questioned Audrey. Audrey smirked, Miss Leverton, you're wasting your talents. You should be on Broadway. She hadn't even tried to break free, Heather had let go on her own. Heather might be the woman Duncan was going to marry, but that didn't mean she could frame and trap Audrey at will. Familiar footsteps approached, it was Duncan. The once gentle and refined young man now looked at her with eyes as cold as a New York winter. Suddenly, Audrey understood. Heather was putting on a show for him. Duncan, Heather saw him and cried even more pitifully. She got up from the marble floor, deliberately showing her swollen hands to Duncan. Duncan, you're finally back. She just threw hot water at me. She said my fiancé is just someone she cast aside. She also said. What else did she say? Duncan's eyes were cold. She said I'm the other woman, that I stole you from her. But it was her who ran away with another man and your money a year ago, before we got together. Duncan's lips curved into a cold, lonely smile as he walked toward Audrey. Audrey, don't think that my letting you stay in this penthouse means I still have feelings for you. Let me tell you now, I don't. I just want to watch the person who betrayed me live a life worse than death. A life worse than death? News of his engagement to Heather was all over social media these days. Now it seemed that even with a fiancé, he wouldn't allow her to leave him. His hatred for her had reached the point of no return. But she loved him. Dying by his side in this luxurious Manhattan apartment would be her greatest happiness. Duncan's eyes narrowed as he watched Audrey. He couldn't believe she showed no remorse, even smiling at a time like this. His hands suddenly let go, his gaze falling on Heather's swollen hands. Apologize to her. Heather smiled triumphantly. But it wasn't me, it was her. I said apologize to Heather. Are you deaf? Audrey looked at Duncan without saying a word, while his anger reached a boiling point. Apologize. Audrey, are you incapable of understanding English? Duncan roared. Fine, I'll apologize. Audrey suddenly realized he wouldn't let this go easily today. Heather sauntered over, clinging to Duncan's arm, her low-cut Versace dress revealing more than it concealed. Duncan, my hand hurts so much. Apologize, this is my last warning. Duncan ignored Heather, his gaze fixed on Audrey. I'm sorry. Louder. I'm sorry. Who are you apologizing to? Audrey's voice was already quite loud, but Duncan was still unsatisfied. With a thud, Audrey fell to her knees on the marble floor. Miss Leverton, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have thrown hot water at you. It's all my fault, it's my fault. She then repeatedly knocked her forehead on the ground. It split open, blood streaming down her already gaunt face, creating a pitiful sight. Are you satisfied now? She looked up at him, her eyes full of misery, stubbornness, and resentment. She had chosen to stay by his side in the final moments of her life, never imagining it would be this difficult. One wanted to drive her away, the other was determined to humiliate her. Should she really not have stayed? Duncan, looking at Audrey now, suddenly felt a pull in his heart. He averted his gaze and pulled Heather upstairs. Audrey watched as Duncan, unwilling to say another word to her, tears streaming down her face. Duncan was pulling Heather upstairs, but for what? It didn't take much imagination to understand. She forcefully wiped away her tears and stood up, looking at the all-too-familiar penthouse. She felt as if an invisible net was closing in, making it hard to breathe. Duncan had ultimately fallen in love with another woman, there was no place for her in his heart anymore. A woman's low moan came from upstairs. The sound was suggestive, and Audrey pressed her hands hard against her chest, feeling her heart burning with sharp pain. Finally, Audrey fled in panic. Walking alone on the street, looking at the pitch-black sky, she felt like a homeless child. A gentle breeze passed by, and she felt incredibly cold, as if her blood were freezing. She crouched on the sidewalk and began to sob loudly. All she wanted was to spend her remaining life with the man she loved. Was even this small wish impossible to fulfill? She was human too, she would bleed and feel sad, and soon die. Why had fate not only given her this illness but also taken away her love? Was she truly undeserving of happiness? Was she really not worthy? As she cried, she felt a hand reach out to her. No matter how upset you are, he can't see it, can't feel it. Why bother? The voice was familiar, how could she not recognize it after living together for a year? Josh. Audrey looked up to see a strikingly handsome man with an air of French nobility standing before her. I was worried about you, and your behavior today certainly doesn't ease my concerns. Josh's slender fingers brushed over the wound on her forehead. Audrey smiled bitterly. For someone like me, what difference does it make if I die sooner or later? Josh understood all too well what she meant. He helped Audrey to her feet. Come, let me take you to get cleaned up. Audrey allowed Josh to lead her away like a puppet. At the hotel, they talked for a long time, but Audrey still refused to leave the country. In the morning, Josh wanted to take Audrey for a walk in the park to clear her mind. She refused, but as Josh pulled her toward the door, she accidentally fell into his arms. He instinctively embraced her and opened the door. Just as the suite door opened, a familiar and incredibly angry face appeared before Audrey. How did Duncan end up here? Duncan stared at the two people embracing intimately, his face ashen. He had come looking for her because he couldn't let her go, and now all his worries had turned into a joke. A complete joke. Duncan, it's not what you think. Audrey frantically broke free from Josh's embrace, shaking her head repeatedly as she tried to explain. Audrey, are you still trying to deceive me at a time like this? Duncan yanked her away from Josh's side. Josh held onto Audrey's other hand, refusing to let go. Let her go. Duncan's eyes were cold, as if he might draw a knife and stab someone at any moment. A year ago, it was this man who had run away with her, and now they were still together. Perhaps it was time to settle that old score. With this thought, he kicked Josh in the stomach. Josh stumbled back, releasing Audrey in the process. Are you insane? What right do you have to assault people? Josh shouted in anger. The right of you touching my woman. Duncan pulled Audrey behind him and lunged at Josh. Audrey hugged Duncan tightly from behind. Stop fighting. We didn't do anything. Duncan stopped, glaring intently at the man before him. Audrey, don't be afraid of him. Even if we did do something, it's legal. We're married. Josh dropped the bombshell. It was as shocking as a citywide blackout. Duncan told himself that perhaps his ears were playing tricks on him. How could she be married to a French man? Audrey was stunned. She hadn't expected Josh to reveal this. Caught off guard by the revelation, she didn't know how to explain. Married? How could you two be married? This was impossible. How could Audrey be married? What's so impossible about it? We got married a year ago in Paris. If you don't believe me, you can check with the embassy. Josh smiled triumphantly. He had one, hadn't he? Josh, why did you have to reveal this? Why? Audrey demanded. They had agreed that Duncan would never know about this. Duncan is getting engaged to that Leverton heiress. He'll soon be someone else's husband. Audrey, wake up, Josh shouted. Her days were numbered. He had lied earlier when he said she had 2 or 3 months. Her organs were failing, she had a month at most. But nothing was absolute. Perhaps if he took her to more hospitals now, they might find the cause of her illness. That way, she might have a chance to live. Instead of using her limited time to fulfill her wishes. So you really are married? Duncan's eyes turned incredibly dark, his voice sounding as if it came from hell itself. Duncan, believe me, it's not what you think. Duncan forcefully pried Audrey's hands off him, turned around, and asked, enunciating each word, you really married him, didn't you? Yes, but we. The truth really wasn't what he imagined. Enough. Audrey, what makes you think I, Duncan Millington, would want a married woman? All of Duncan's fury exploded with Audrey's confession. Even as a mistress, it was unacceptable. He, Duncan, would never get entangled with a married woman. Audrey watched Duncan leave resolutely, feeling a sharp pain in her chest. After a while, she turned to Josh. Why did you have to tell him? We're already divorced, and I only married you to get a visa, to stay in France for treatment. Audrey, he's getting married. The engagement ceremony is in 3 days. How can you be together after that? Please listen to me, come with me for treatment. I've contacted the best hospital. I believe we'll finally find out what's wrong. We can save you. Please, just listen. Josh placed his hands on Audrey's shoulders. She was so thin, looking as if a breeze could knock her over. Audrey brushed his hands away. Stop trying to deceive me, Joshua. We haven't found the cause in a whole year. Why would we find it now? I'm grateful for everything you've done this past year. I know you did it all for my sake. But returning to him was my choice. Yes, he's getting engaged in 3 days. I'll leave then, but not for treatment. I'll find somewhere where no one knows me and quietly die. I'm tired, so very tired. I can't take any more of this. With that, she rushed out. Josh crouched on the ground, defeated. The woman he loved wouldn't stay, no matter how much he gave. Her heart was completely filled with that man, leaving no room for him. Audrey returned to the mansion, but the staff blocked her at the gate. No matter how much she pleaded, they refused to let her in. Looking at the indifferent staff, she was overcome with grief. A year ago, she didn't tell him about her illness because she feared he couldn't handle it. At the time, the company was struggling, and he didn't have the energy to spare. She wasn't ready to leave this world so young, so when Josh, her doctor, suggested taking her to France for treatment, she agreed without hesitation. Suddenly, a loud boom signaled the start of a downpour. She dialed Duncan's number. "Duncan, believe me, my marriage to him wasn't what you think. Nothing happened between us. Just 4 days ago, we finalized our divorce." "Divorced, huh? Audrey, I'll never take a divorced woman. You chose this path, now bear the consequences yourself." "Duncan, please believe me. It's not what you think. Let me in, and I'll give you a proper explanation." She was on the verge of tears. She owed him an explanation, but he never gave her a chance. She had originally planned to spend her final days with the man she loved. But now, not only could she not stay by his side, but he also saw her as a traitor. A traitor. "Audrey, I don't want to see you. Not in this lifetime." Duncan's voice echoed like a distant roar, terrifying and cold. "No. Duncan, please don't do this, don't. Beep beep." She desperately pleaded, but was met with a dial tone as he hung up. When she tried calling Duncan again, she heard, "Sorry, the number you have dialed is not in service." He had cut off their only connection. Frantically, Audrey pounded on the iron gate, begging the staff, "Open the door, please. I beg you. I need to explain to Duncan, I still owe him an explanation. Open the door. Open the door." The staff knew that Heather was the future mistress of this house, while the woman before them was just a shameless gold digger trying to take her place. So no matter how much Audrey begged, they refused to open the gate. Audrey stared wide-eyed as the staff disappeared from her sight, her knees giving way as she collapsed to the ground. The puddles on the sidewalk reflected her frail body, drenched by the pounding rain until she looked as pale as a corpse. Her chest felt constricted, a metallic taste rising and filling her entire mouth. With a splash, blood spilled into the pooled water, quickly spreading before disappearing without a trace. Her body gradually lost its warmth, her breathing becoming shallower. She kept whispering Duncan's name, "Duncan. Duncan." Before the last syllable could fall, Audrey collapsed in the rain. In her hazy vision, she thought she saw a familiar silhouette appear before her, but when she tried to focus, everything blurred. Was that Duncan? 2 days later, Audrey woke up in a hospital room with only Josh by her side. On the nightstand lay 2 plane tickets to Zurich. Josh couldn't bear to watch Audrey torture herself like this. That man wasn't worth it. Josh held Audrey's hand, his voice as gentle as a concerned father. "Audrey, please. Come with me to Switzerland for treatment." She pulled her hand away, staring blankly at the ceiling. "Josh, let go of your obsession. You deserve someone who can love you back." "Obsession? Ha, you have yours, and I have mine. You're willing to give up your life just to stay by Duncan's side. How am I any different? The woman he loved didn't love him back but loved someone else. He was destined for unrequited love in this lifetime. But that couldn't stop his feelings, could it?" Audrey tightly closed her eyes. Josh was right, her obsession was Duncan. She cared about his attitude toward her, every look he gave her, every word he said. She didn't want to leave this world with his hatred, no matter the cost. Josh looked at Audrey's face, now so gaunt it was barely larger than his palm, and felt his heart breaking. He had tried to persuade her countless times, and now he was at a loss for words. "Josh, give up. I don't have much time left. In this life, I can't walk out of his world because he is my world now. I don't want him to hate me. He is my heart, my air, my everything. Without him, I can't live for a moment, not even a second." She didn't want to cry in front of Josh or have him pity her, but she couldn't help it. Her heart ached so badly, as if it were being corroded by acid, inch by inch. Josh watched her cry and started crying too. "All right, just this once. I'll help you bring him here to listen to your explanation. I hope that after hearing it, he won't hate you anymore. Audrey looked at Josh with red-rimmed eyes, weakly saying, Josh, you don't have to do this. Go back, leave. This isn't your place. Josh stood up and walked out, his back to Audrey. Wherever you are is where I belong. My heart and my body follow you. Audrey, I love you. Even if you love Duncan, you can't cruelly stop me from loving you. Loving you is my choice, I won't force you to reciprocate. In the CEO's office of Quartet Enterprises on Wall Street, Josh looked at Duncan, who was engrossed in his work, with eyes as fierce as a wolf's. Go see her. Duncan, buried in a pile of financial reports and with no intention of acknowledging Josh, suddenly threw his pen onto the mahogany desk upon hearing Josh's words. Who are you to demand anything from me? On what grounds? Duncan's eyes were cold, the veins at his temples pulsing visibly. Audrey betrayed me, and now she's begging for my forgiveness. Does she think the whole world revolves around her? Josh's lips curled into a cold smile, his hands tightly clenched into fists. Mr. Millington thinks she betrayed you because of the tabloids' baseless rumors about her eloping with me when she left? You condemned her without even giving her a chance to explain. You're too cruel. Audrey is such a wonderful woman, yet she fell in love with someone like Duncan. She deserves so much better. Isn't it obvious? Audrey is the kind of woman who's fickle and unfaithful. It's a well-known fact, Duncan said, a mocking look in his eyes. Josh was so furious he wanted to punch Duncan. Audrey, such a good woman, and Duncan talked about her as if she were worthless. He yanked Duncan out of his chair and shouted, Duncan, do you even know? She's sick, she's dying. The least you can do is see her once, listen to her before she passes, just out of respect for the time you spent together. Duncan couldn't believe it. Good people don't die young, only the wicked seem to last forever. Audrey, dying? This had to be some elaborate trick between them, another ploy to deceive him. Josh, right? Didn't you run away with her once? Now that I don't want her anymore, doesn't this work out perfectly for you too? You can finally be together openly, Duncan sneered, his pride keeping him from holding on to a woman who had betrayed him. Do you think I wouldn't want that? Duncan, let me tell you this, one day, you'll regret every word you've said today, Josh stormed out, his eyes red with anger. Regret? No, Duncan thought. He would never regret it, not in this lifetime. Audrey had betrayed their relationship first. She was the one who was unfaithful, and she should bear the consequences of her actions. Duncan picked up a document and pretended to focus on it. But after tossing it aside 3 times, he finally headed to the hospital. When he arrived, Audrey wasn't in the room, she had gone to the bathroom. His eyes fell on 2 plane tickets by the bedside. The flight was at 3 p.m. 2 tickets. She was planning to leave with that man again? On one hand, she had that guy begging her to listen to him. On the other hand, she already had her escape planned. Dying. It was all lies. When Audrey came out of the bathroom, she saw Duncan holding the plane tickets, his eyes blazing with anger. Duncan, Audrey stammered, desperate to explain but tripping over her words. Audrey, what more is there to say? Weren't you supposed to be dying? Why do you look so healthy? Duncan growled, gripping her chin tightly. Josh had promised to bring him here. Audrey hadn't been sure if he would actually come, but she had still tidied herself up and put on light makeup. She wanted Duncan to remember her at her best. She hadn't expected Josh to tell Duncan about her illness. But now, it seemed like Duncan didn't believe it at all. In fact, his misunderstanding had only deepened. With a cruel glare, Duncan threw the plane tickets in Audrey's face. Go back abroad with your lover. I never want to see you again. No matter what she said now, he wouldn't believe her, would he? Duncan, I love you. No matter how much you misunderstand or hate me, I still love you, she said, looking at him with that familiar stubbornness in her eyes. Duncan's heart clenched painfully, his fingers tightening as his eyes reddened with fury. Your love makes me sick, Audrey. Do you even know what love is? Do you know what it's like to truly love someone or to feel the sting of being betrayed by the one you love? He suddenly let go of her, his anger dimming to something darker. No, you don't. How could you? Audrey, remember this, no matter how many lifetimes we live, I will never love you again. A woman like you isn't worthy of love. Tears streamed down Audrey's face as she watched Duncan press his hands against his chest, struggling to contain his emotions. I know. I know everything. I love you, Duncan. I've never stopped loving you. A year ago, I didn't leave you by choice, I had no other option. No choice. Was betraying me also no choice? Fine. Audrey, weren't you supposed to be dying? Do you want to explain? All right. I'll grant your wish. My engagement to Heather is cancelled. Instead, we're getting married next month. You'll prepare the wedding, and then I'll listen to your explanation once. Audrey stared at Duncan in disbelief. He knew she loved him, yet he wanted her to prepare his wedding, to hand over the man she loved to another woman with her own hands. His cruelty and coldness far exceeded her imagination. But she had no choice. She didn't want to leave with his hatred. He could marry another woman, but he couldn't hate her. To be hated by the man she loved with all her heart, that was crueler than anything else. Audrey couldn't accept such an outcome. She wouldn't. Not even in death. All right, I promise you. I'll help prepare your wedding, and you'll give me a chance to explain. These were probably the most difficult words Audrey had ever spoken in her life. Her already wounded heart bled at the thought. Duncan, unwilling to look at Audrey any longer, turned to leave. Tomorrow, we'll choose the wedding dress. Show me your sincerity. With that, the door slammed shut. Audrey couldn't hold back and coughed up blood onto the floor. No amount of makeup could hide her weakness and pallor. She collapsed on the ground, too weak even to lift a finger. It was a nurse doing rounds who found her and called for a doctor to rush her to the emergency room. Regarding Audrey's condition, the hospital could only express helplessness. They couldn't diagnose her illness, it was a rare condition, perhaps even the first of its kind. They could only use medications to alleviate her organ failure, but this merely treated the symptoms, not the cause. The patient wouldn't live much longer. Yet despite the severity of her condition, when Duncan called, she still agreed to go out. At the entrance of beloved wedding boutique, Duncan and Heather stood before her like a perfect couple. Heather, arm linked with Duncan's, smiled dazzlingly yet piercingly. Audrey, I'm surprised you're so punctual. Audrey nodded, her gaze falling on Duncan's ice-cold face. However, Duncan, as if touched by something filthy, immediately averted his eyes and walked towards the boutique. The boutique staff recognized Duncan, Heather, and Audrey. But they had three distinctly different attitudes towards them. Admiration for Duncan, envy for Heather. Only for Audrey did they show disdain and contempt. She could only steel herself and walk in, hearing the staff's gossip around her. This woman is so shameless. She ran off with another man using Mr. Millington's money, and now she has the nerve to come back. Yeah. If I were her, I'd drown myself in a puddle of spit. Keep your voices down. This woman is cunning. Look, even though Miss Leverton is about to marry Mr. Millington, he still keeps her around. Heather's gaze fell on Audrey, a flash of malice crossing her face before she turned to Duncan with a radiant smile. Duncan, why don't you sit over there? Audrey and I will go to the fitting room to try on wedding dresses. Duncan nodded, never once looking at Audrey. Outside the fitting room, Heather said, Audrey, could you try on the wedding dress a French designer custom-made for me? We have similar figures, so it's most suitable for you to try it. Audrey was stunned. Try on a wedding dress? She had never worn a wedding dress in her life. Who would have thought that her first time would be trying one on for the fiancé of the man she loved? How laughable. How ironic. All women dream of wearing a beautiful wedding dress and marrying the man they love, but for her, this had become an impossible dream. As she hesitated, Heather had already brought the wedding dress before her. Just as she took the dress, Audrey suddenly cried out ah! And dropped it as if she'd been electrocuted. Something had just pricked her. There was something wrong with this dress. Hearing the noise, Heather looked at Audrey with confusion. What's wrong? There's something in this dress. She was about to say there was something hidden in the dress. But the store assistant didn't give her a chance to speak, picking up the dress and thrusting it back into her arms. Miss Lyons, this dress was designed by a top French designer. There can't be anything wrong with it. Please, just go try it on. But this. Before Audrey could say more, she was pushed into the fitting room by the assistant. As the door closed, she caught a glimpse of a sharp glint in Heather's eyes. So it was intentional. Finally, she put on the wedding dress Heather had carefully prepared for her. There were several places where she had been pricked and was bleeding, but she didn't even frown. Is this all right, Miss Leverton? Audrey spread her hands, smiling at Heather as if nothing was wrong. Heather smiled insincerely and said, It looks good, but the neckline is a bit high. Pull it down a little more. As Heather finished speaking, the store assistant stepped forward to help. To prevent the assistant from causing more mischief, Audrey quickly stopped her. No need, I'll do it myself. Just as she pulled the dress down, there was a ripping sound, and then the dress slid to the floor. It was too late to stop it. Ah! Duncan looked over at the sound. His eyes grew colder, freezing over completely before he walked over. Heather feigned surprise, while the store assistant looked at Audrey with contempt. Miss Lyons, what is this? Audrey crouched on the ground, using the dress to cover herself. With reddened eyes, she asked, This was intentional too, wasn't it? Audrey, you're the one who did this on purpose. You clearly wanted to sabotage my wedding to Duncan, so you deliberately tore the dress to seduce him. Heather looked aggrieved, but inside she was triumphant. Audrey was about to explain when Duncan's icy voice came through. Audrey, the facts are right in front of us. Are you still trying to argue? I didn't. He really believed it. When had they lost all trust between them? Even temporarily. Audrey, even if you stripped naked right now, I wouldn't have the slightest interest in you. You disgust me. With that, Duncan walked away without looking back. As Duncan's figure grew more distant, Audrey's mind kept replaying his words. Audrey, even if you stripped naked right now, I wouldn't have the slightest interest in you. You disgust me. Disgust. It felt like her heart had a gaping hole, with cold wind whistling through. Her already bleeding heart shattered instantly, beyond repair, never to be whole again. Around her, she could hear the store assistant's mocking voices. This woman is so shameless, trying to seduce the groom in front of the bride-to-be. Mr. Millington's words just now were so satisfying. She deserves it. Women like her should end up like this. Audrey didn't know how she managed to leave the bridal shop. She felt the air around her growing thinner, she could hardly breathe, the scenery before her eyes became increasingly blurry until she could see nothing at all, and she collapsed on the street. When Josh found Audrey, he wanted nothing more than to strangle Duncan with his own hands. That man's heartlessness had reached a truly appalling level. Josh desperately wanted to take Audrey to France while she was still unconscious, but he didn't. He loved Audrey, and because of that, even though it hurt him deeply, he respected her choices. On the third day, Audrey woke up in the hospital. She struggled to get out of bed, but Josh wouldn't let her. The moment she felt a little better, she sneaked out of the hospital. Heather was too busy cozying up with the Duncan family to come after Audrey. However, she still managed to dig up last year's scandal and put it before the media again. Audrey became a public disgrace, a target of ridicule wherever she went. Then, on the eve of Duncan and Heather's wedding, Janet Baker, Duncan's mother, came to see her. Without a word, Janet slapped her across the face. You shameless woman. You already have another man, so why are you still clinging to my son? Even though Janet was in her 40s, she took great care of herself and looked like she was in her 30s. But when she was angry, she was terrifying. Janet, I'm not clinging to Duncan. You've misunderstood. What happened a year ago wasn't what you think. I didn't run away with another man. I went to France for medical treatment. I didn't betray my relationship with Duncan. I don't want to hear a single word of your explanation. We've all seen the explicit video of you in bed with that other man. The only reason we didn't release it to the media is that we showed mercy. But if you don't leave my son alone, I can't guarantee you won't be the headline news tomorrow, Audrey. Janet's eyes were wide with rage, her face full of disgust. Trying to come back and throw yourself at my son again? Do you even deserve him? Audrey held her cheek, staring blankly as Janet stormed off after her harsh words. It was already a done deal, Duncan was destined to marry Heather. What more could she say? As she watched Janet's figure disappear from sight, it finally hit Audrey. Janet mentioned the video, which meant Duncan must have seen it too. But she hadn't done anything to betray him. So how could such a video even exist? Suddenly, she felt a faint pain in her stomach. It was only then that she remembered, it had been over a month since her last period. But she knew her body. There was no way she could be pregnant. She was a dying woman, how could she possibly be carrying a child? Uneasy, she went to a pharmacy to buy a pregnancy test. When the results came back positive, she was forced to confront the worst possible reality, she was pregnant. The night before Duncan was set to marry another woman, while her own days were numbered, Audrey had discovered she was pregnant. It was as if fate was playing the cruelest joke on her, as if having a terminal illness wasn't enough. God had given her, a woman who was about to lose both her life and the man she loved, a child. What was she supposed to do about this baby? Could she even live long enough to give birth? Was it really possible? Just then, a blurry figure approached her. Audrey thought the person seemed familiar but wasn't sure, not until the figure grabbed her. Audrey, why did you sneak out of the hospital again? How many times have you run off this past month? Are you trying to kill yourself? Josh asked anxiously. Seeing Audrey so out of it, Josh was both frustrated and worried, but he couldn't bring himself to raise his voice at her. You're Josh. It was only when she heard his voice that Audrey confirmed the man in front of her was Josh. Sensing something was off, Josh waved his hand in front of her eyes, but she brushed him away. I'm not blind. It's just more blurry than before. What kind of world was this, where all the suffering and misfortune seemed to fall on her? Josh watched as Audrey leaned weakly against the wall. Let's go. Maybe there's still hope, he said. No, I can't leave, Audrey insisted, her voice trembling. I might go blind or even die before we reach the airport. Josh, I'm so close now. They're getting married tomorrow, and Duncan promised to hear me out. I still have a chance. Josh ran his fingers through his hair, exasperated. And then what? Will he call off the wedding? Leave Heather at the altar? That's not the point, Audrey whispered, her voice barely audible. I just can't bear him hating me. I don't want to die with that burden. He may not love me anymore, but I can't let him hate me. Her devotion was unwavering, a love so deep she'd sacrifice everything for it. Audrey, please, Josh pleaded, his heart breaking. Can't you think of yourself for once? You're not made of stone. You're flesh and blood, with feelings that matter. Tears rolled down Audrey's cheeks. Just give me tonight. After I explain, whether he forgives me or not, I'll go with you. Duncan and Heather are perfect for each other. I won't interfere after the wedding. It was the biggest compromise she could offer. The last thing she wanted was to hurt Josh. As midnight approached, Audrey found herself outside Duncan's penthouse, her hand hovering over the doorbell. When he opened the door, she realized with a pang that his face was now just a blur to her failing eyes. This would be the last time she'd ever see him. She stumbled towards him, nearly tripping over the coffee table. Duncan watched impassively, making no move to help. Well, he said coldly. Isn't this what you've been waiting for? Audrey stood before him, wringing her hands. Duncan, I never meant to leave you. I was sick, really sick. I went abroad for treatment because I didn't want to burden you, especially with the company struggling. And marrying Josh? Duncan's voice was like ice. It was for the visa, nothing more. He was my doctor, my legal guardian. Save it, Duncan cut her off. Do you expect me to believe this soap opera? Audrey's voice broke. You still don't trust me, do you? Duncan, I don't know about any video, but it's not true. I swear on my life, you're the only man I've ever been with. If I'm lying, may God strike me dead. She stared at him desperately, trying to memorize a face she could barely see. All she had left was the coldness in his voice. Duncan said nothing. What was there to say? They sat in silence as the night bled into dawn. When the maid brought in Duncan's tuxedo, Audrey rose shakily. She ran her fingers over the crisp fabric, lingering on the bow tie. You'll look so handsome, she murmured, smiling through her tears. If only I could see it, she thought. If only it was me you were marrying. But that dream is gone forever. We were never meant to be. Duncan took a long drag from his cigarette, his mind in turmoil. Had he really misjudged her? Or was this just another of her elaborate lies? Let me help you get ready. Audrey's voice was soft, but it did nothing to ease the knot in his stomach. He felt like he was losing something precious, though he couldn't quite put his finger on what. He crushed out his cigarette and stood, his eyes meeting hers. Is this really what you want? Yes, Duncan. I love you. Meeting you, loving you, it's been the greatest joy of my life. You're getting married today, and even though I'm not the bride, I want your happiness more than anything. Your joy matters more than my own. From now on, you won't be alone. Life will get harder, you'll be tired sometimes, but that's part of the journey too. Tears streamed down Audrey's face. Watching her cry, Duncan remembered a promise he'd once made. Audrey, don't ever cry again. You're beautiful when you cry, but each tear is like a falling star. I want you always smiling, always happy. Gently, Audrey helped Duncan into his tuxedo. Promise me you'll be happy, Duncan. Cherish Heather. Build a family. Live an amazing life together. Duncan had never seen this side of Audrey. It made his heart ache. Shouldn't she be begging him not to marry someone else? Why was she blessing their union? Was this an act, or did she truly believe he'd change his mind? Do you think I'd fall for your tricks again? He snapped. That only works once. You betrayed me. I'll never trust you again. Get out. No, Duncan, please. He turned to leave, but Audrey rushed forward, wrapping her arms around him from behind. He could feel the softness of her body, the pounding of her heart. He pried her hands away, but she clung to him desperately. Let me hold you one last time, she pleaded, her face pressed against his back. Just once more. Duncan's icy facade cracked for a moment. This woman, despite everything, still knew how to tug at his heartstrings. For a fleeting second, he wondered if there was more to the story. A knock at the door jolted him back to reality. Sir, they're waiting. The ceremony's about to start. Audrey reluctantly let go, wiping her tears. Go, she whispered. Remember what I said, be happy. Happier than anyone. Duncan hesitated for a moment before walking out without looking back. Only when his footsteps faded did Audrey collapse in sobs. I'm so sorry, baby, she whispered, hands pressed against her stomach. I couldn't keep your father. I can't be selfish. I don't know how much time I have left. It's my fault. I'm sorry I can't bring you safely into this world. As Audrey walked down the hallway, surrounded by festive decorations, her heart sank. She dialed Josh's number. I told him everything. I'm ready to go. While waiting for his response, she heard a familiar voice from around the corner. That voice. Thallium poisoning doesn't leave the body naturally, and it's undetectable in standard tests. Audrey shouldn't have lasted this long. Are you sure you gave me the right dose? That voice, it was Heather. Though her words were hushed, Audrey heard every syllable with crystal clarity. Audrey froze, her mind reeling. After countless hospital visits and inconclusive tests, she never imagined Heather was behind her mysterious illness. What had she ever done to deserve this? Was Duncan really worth destroying another person's life? Look, I'm marrying Duncan today, and Audrey needs to be out of the picture. Permanently. I don't care how you do it, just make it happen. Heather angrily ended the call, only to turn and find Audrey standing right there. What did you hear? Heather's face drained of color, panic flashing in her eyes. Though weak, Audrey's voice was filled with fury. Everything. It was you all along. You wormed your way into Quartet Enterprises just to poison me. Fine, you know the truth. So what? Heather sneered. What do you have to offer Duncan? No family connections, no Ivy League degree, you're just a pretty face. Duncan's career is skyrocketing. He needs a partner who can help build an empire. The Leverton-Millington merger will create a business dynasty. What can you bring to the table? Heather's words dripped with contempt. You won't get away with this, Audrey warned. If you do this to me, you do it to Duncan too. I won't let that happen. Oh, really? Heather scoffed. Look at you, you're barely standing. I'm shocked you've lasted this long, let alone made it to our wedding day. Taking advantage of Audrey's weakness, Heather grabbed her and dragged her toward the window. What made you think you could compete with me? You're not even in the same league. Audrey struggled feebly as Heather yanked her hair. You should have died in France. You survived and had the audacity to come back? Trust me, you won't live to see tomorrow. As Heather forced Audrey's head out the window, Audrey suddenly began retching uncontrollably. Heather froze, a horrifying realization dawning. Her expression darkened, murder in her eyes. You're pregnant. You're actually pregnant. Duncan had always kept Heather at arm's length, yet somehow, he'd been intimate with Audrey. Heather's nails dug into her palms. She was supposed to be Duncan's wife. Audrey had to die. Today. Just as Heather prepared to act, footsteps echoed behind them. It could only be Duncan. In a flash, Heather pulled Audrey back and switched their positions. Audrey, stop. Please don't kill me, she cried out, her voice quavering with mock terror. Even if you kill me, Duncan will never marry you. Duncan, help. Save me. Before Audrey could react, Heather rushed to Duncan, her body trembling. Duncan, I'm terrified. Audrey tried to kill me because she doesn't want us to marry. She almost pushed me out the window. Audrey stared at Heather, her blood boiling as she watched the lies unfold. Heather, when will you stop? How long will you keep up this act? You poisoned me with thallium. That's why I've been sick. You deserve to rot in hell, to die in the gutter. You're the one who should die, Heather. Consumed by rage she had never known before, Audrey lunged forward. Duncan, hearing Heather's cries, hurried over. He saw Audrey's face contorted with fury, looking wild and unhinged. Without hesitation, he grabbed Heather and roughly shoved Audrey away. Audrey crumpled to the floor. Audrey, 1 minute you're dying, the next it's poisoning. Can you ever tell the truth? All those blessings earlier, just another act, wasn't it? You wanted me to call off the wedding and marry you instead, right? It was the only explanation that made sense. This was classic Audrey manipulation. Audrey never imagined Duncan would see her this way. She lay on the floor, shaking. Duncan, I'm not lying. Why can't you believe me just this once? Heather poisoned me when she was my assistant a year ago. It was her. She admitted it. Audrey's voice grew desperate. She's dangerous, Duncan. She'll do the same to you one day. I'm scared she'll. Audrey crawled to him, clinging to his leg. But when she looked up, the disgust in his eyes silenced her. The words died in her throat. Audrey, what are you trying to accomplish? Is ruining my wedding the only thing that will satisfy you? Get out. In that moment, Duncan loathed Audrey to his core. He couldn't fathom how he had ever fallen for such an evil woman. Heather, playing the victim, nestled against Duncan's chest, a subtle, victorious smirk crossing her lips. Audrey was speechless. The man she loved didn't believe her. Nothing she said would convince him now. She had only wanted to leave without his hatred, but after discovering Heather's true nature, how could she let Duncan marry her? I don't care what you think of me, Duncan, but you can't marry her. If she poisoned me, she'll do the same to you. Duncan. But Duncan had heard enough. He yanked his leg free, and with a slight shove, Audrey fell again. Heather's eyes gleamed with satisfaction as she watched Audrey struggle to rise. Duncan glanced down at Audrey, lying on the floor, but he felt nothing. Without a second thought, he turned and walked away with Heather. From the end of the hallway, Heather's voice drifted back. Duncan, why haven't you changed into your tux yet? It got dirty. Throw it out and pick another one later. Audrey's vision blurred, her surroundings fading to white. She could no longer see clearly, but her ears worked fine, reminding her that all the tenderness Duncan once showed her now belonged to another woman. The tux was dirty. Was it because it had touched her? His hatred ran so deep. Audrey couldn't tell whether her heart or body hurt more. Every breath was agony. A sharp, stabbing pain in her abdomen snapped her back to reality. Warm liquid pooled beneath her. Audrey frantically pressed her hands against her stomach, but she couldn't stop it. No. No. My baby. Blood soaked through her clothes, the metallic smell overwhelming her senses. Her agonized screams echoed down the hallway, filled with despair.